Gallic Wars, 58 to 50 BC. Julius Caesar led Roman forces to conquer the vast region of Gaul, facing fierce tribes and leaders such as Vercingetorix. Driven by Caesar's ambition and desire for wealth, these campaigns resulted in the annexation of territories and the expansion of Roman commerce and culture. The war culminated in the subjugation of Gaul, but caused political instability that contributed to the end of the Roman Republic. Estimates suggest that around 1 million Gauls were killed and another million were taken into slavery. Roman Civil War, 49 to 31 BC. Internal conflicts involving figures such as Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Mark Antony, driven by power disputes and political reforms. The wars resulted in the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire under Augustus. The consequences included a restructuring of government and the centralization of power, shaping the future expansion and governance of the empire. Casualties are difficult to pinpoint, but could have reached hundreds of thousands. The Crusades, 1096–1291. Expeditions sanctioned by the Catholic Church with the aim of recapturing the Holy Land from Muslim control. Initiated by papal appeals and religious fervor, they involved fighters from all over Europe. Despite brief successes and the creation of crusader states, most campaigns failed, resulting in substantial losses and prolonged tensions between Christians and Muslims. The Crusades had a lasting impact on intercultural relations and medieval trade. It is estimated that deaths could have ranged from 1 to 3 million people throughout the Crusades. 100 Years' War, 1337 to 1453. A series of intermittent conflicts between England and France, centered around dynastic and territorial disputes, characterized by advances and setbacks, including the famous Battle of Agincourt and the emergence of Joan of Arc. The war ended with a decisive French victory. The consequences shaped French and English national identity and altered the balance of power in Europe. Casualty estimates vary widely, with some reaching up to 3 million people, considering the effects of the war and the Black Death associated with the period. Napoleonic Wars, 1803–1815. Started by the expansionist ambitions of Napoleon Bonaparte, they involved much of Europe against France. Innovative strategies and epic battles such as Austerlitz and Waterloo defined the period. The wars ended with the defeat of Napoleon and the restoration of the French monarchy. As many as 3.5 to 6 million people may have died, including military and civilian casualties. American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. A devastating conflict between the northern and southern states of the USA, centered on issues of slavery and state autonomy. Led by figures such as Abraham Lincoln and Robert E. Lee, it culminated in the abolition of slavery and the preservation of the Union. The consequences were profound, with immense loss of life and a long social and economic reconstruction. Recent estimates suggest that around 750,000 soldiers have died, with additional numbers of civilians affected. World War I, 1914 to 1918. Triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, it turned into a global conflict involving the great powers and complex alliances. Innovations such as trench warfare and chemical weapons resulted in massive casualties. The Treaty of Versailles formally ended the war but imposed punitive conditions on Germany, sowing the seeds for World War II. It is estimated that around 16 million people died, including around 10 million military personnel and 6 million civilians. World War II, 1939 to 1945. Started by the aggressive expansion of Nazi Germany, it became the most comprehensive and destructive conflict in history. Involving fighting on multiple fronts, it culminated in the use of nuclear weapons and the Holocaust. The end of the war saw the emergence of two superpowers, the USA and the Soviet Union, and the beginning of the Cold War, as well as the founding of the United Nations, the deadliest conflict in history, with estimates ranging from 70 to 85 million deaths, including civilians and combatants. Korean War, 1950 to 1953. A conflict between North Korea, supported by China and the Soviet Union, and South Korea, supported by the UN and the US. It ended in a stalemate with an armistice, but no peace treaty, leaving the peninsula divided and tense to this day. The conflict is often remembered as the Forgotten War, despite its significant geopolitical implications. Around 2.5 million people may have died, including military personnel and civilians. Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975. A prolonged struggle between Communist North Vietnam, supported by the Soviet Union and China, and South Vietnam, supported by the US. Characterized by guerrilla warfare and ideological conflicts, it ended with the withdrawal of the US and the unification of Vietnam under communism. The consequences included deep social and political scars in the US and Vietnam. Estimates vary, but approximately 2 to 3 million Vietnamese and 58,000 American soldiers died in the conflict. War on Terror, 2001 to this day. Initiated by the United States in response to the September 11th attacks, it aims to combat terrorism on several fronts, especially in Afghanistan and Iraq. With a controversial approach and mixed results, it has turned into a series of ongoing conflicts with global implications, calling into question the effectiveness and consequences of such military interventions. Estimates are complex, but could exceed 800,000 deaths, including civilians and combatants, in several countries. Israel-Palestine conflict, early 20th century to this day. A prolonged and complex conflict arising from tensions between Arab and Jewish nationalist movements in the territory then known as Palestine, after the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, and the subsequent war with neighboring Arab countries. Several wars and insurrections marked the region. The main participants include Israel and Palestinian organizations, with interventions from neighboring Arab countries and international influence. The conflict involves territorial disputes, refugee rights, security, and sovereignty issues. The consequences are deeply felt by both sides, with significant loss of life, displacement of people, and continued destruction. Several peace agreements and attempted negotiations, such as the Oslo Accords, were made, but none resulted in a lasting solution. I will make more videos like this. Make sure to subscribe to see them.